I'm going to give out the number because you know what? You can call. It's time for You Called.
You Called. Presented by Playground.
You Called is brought to you by Playground. Major poker festivals at Playground. The March Million features 10 ring events and $1 million in guaranteed prize pools, including a $400,000 guaranteed main event play in Playground's March Million Poker Series from March 23rd to April 2nd. Visit playground.ca for details. We'll open up the phone lines, and as usual, we'll also get to your comments, your questions, and we'll get to those as well. So whether you have questions or whether you have comments, no problem at all. Okay. At 1-888-585-SICK, 1-888-585-SICK. All right. Geez, I think I went overtime with George Larac. I had no idea. I'm reading some comments right at the beginning. He had told me that he had to get off at a certain time, and I just saw it right now. Yikes. Sorry, George. Don't hold it against me. All right. Okay. I know that Frank Consolo has asked 66 Spinning, my buddy Stéphane in Quebec City, to call in. But Stéphane, look, he says, guys, it's your turn tonight. Let's go for another big night. No, we're not going for another big night tonight. We're not. There's only so many arguments I can get into with my wife. And my wife the other night, I went until 12:30 a.m. And she told me I speak very loud. And she had a hard time falling asleep. And she's not too far from me right now. And I don't want to speak loud again. I don't want to go long again. I don't want to disrupt her sleep again because she was mad at me for a couple of days. And happy wife, happy life. So at 11 p.m. tonight, I think that's it. Because I don't want to upset my wife, Already upset her enough. All right, okay. Let's get to some comments. Let's get to some calls. And Yellow, you let me know. Barry says, not trying to be a pest, but seriously, I've been watching hockey since 1974, and the NHL officiating has never been worse than it is now. Parros and his disciplinary role is just not good enough. No, I don't think he's passed the test. I think the other day, by the way, AJ Greer and Mike Hoffman to get a one-game suspension, I think it's an absolute joke. By the way, I don't like 4 officials on the ice either, especially when they still get it wrong. I'd rather they go back to 3. And I think the National Hockey League right now, in terms of officiating, out of all the sports leagues, they're the ones who fall behind. Next. Tony, what rookie do you think is most likely to start opening night next season? What rookie do I think is most likely to start opening night next season? Well, rookie next year or rookie that they have this year? I'm not so sure I understand the question. But I mean, you would think pretty much a lot of the young players that are here this year are going to be on the team next year. Jordan Harris will be on that team next year. Caden Gooley will be on that team next year. Slavkovsky will be on that team next year. I mean, I'm not so sure I understand the question, but they'll have a young team next year. They'll sprinkle in a couple of veterans who are still there because of their contracts. And eventually, when those veterans have a year or 2 left and their contract's going to be up, they won't bring them back and they'll be gone and they'll end up trading them if they can. That's the way it's going to go down. Next. Raymond Singh, sign, sold. Tony, great show as always. You see the Habs making a huge move that doesn't involve Pierre-Luc Dubois this summer at the draft like a Kirby Doc. Great question. I would say that based on where they're going to draft, and they'll have 2 picks in the first round, if one of them isn't used in an eventual deal for Pierre-Luc Dubois, then I would say that no, I don't think they'll make that kind of deal if it's not going to be Dubois. Now, speaking of Dubois, I don't see what the urgency is. I wouldn't give up top picks or top prospects for Dubois, who's going to be available. Look, everyone's saying that he wants to play for the Montreal Canadiens, and it looks that way. By the way, he opened up his own foundation. He's going to be doing great things in the community. He's from here. He grew up liking the Montreal Canadiens and stuff. He wouldn't be the first that wants to come back home. It looks like it, but you see, there's this infatuation with a certain sector of the media that want him here like yesterday. They want him here immediately. Oh, no, they have to make a trade for him this summer. And so then I say, but hold on a second. I don't understand. At the end of the year, his contract is up. His contract's up at the end of June. So he's going to sign a new contract. So if he wants to leave Winnipeg, all he has to do is get that 1-year deal because he's going to be an RFA, right? So he gets the 1-year deal, correct? Perfect. Okay. So then the Jets, let's just say they try and bring him back. He says, no, I'm not coming back, or we'll talk at the end of the year because he wants to leave and go to Montreal, right? So the Jets take the decision to trade him. So the Jets trade him. Perfect. No problem. They trade him to whichever team. Pick a team. They trade him to, I don't know, pick a team. They trade him to, I don't know, whatever team. Detroit. So they trade him to Detroit, okay, for example. So he goes to Detroit, and then the season's over, and his contract's up, and Detroit want to sign him to a new deal. And he doesn't sign. So then he's UFA, and he signs with the Montreal Canadiens. If he really wants to come to Montreal, the Canadiens don't have to give up anything for him. This urgency of going, oh, no, you have to go get him right away, because then if you don't, you're going to end up losing him, this, that, and whatever, and all that stuff. I don't see it that way. I don't. And by the way, look, I take him on my team. I would. When I take him on my team? When he plays the way he's capable of playing at his best. But in the last 20 games or so, 25 games, Pierre-Luc Dubois has been below average. And you remember that shift with the Columbus Blue Jackets, that shift where he went out? And it's probably, in terms of being disinterested, it's probably one of the worst shifts in the history of hockey. And so I'm not going to tell you I'm not worried, because if they would go after him, it all depends on which Pierre-Luc Dubois you're going to get. It all depends on which one you're going to get. I don't know. Worries me a little bit. Not going to lie to you. Worries me a little bit. Next. If you want to call in, Agnello told me that the lines are open right now. Let me see. Okay. 1-888-585-7425. 1-888-585-7425. This one here from Peter. Do you believe that Hughes will be wheeling and dealing this summer more so than last year? I mean, I was just asked that by Raymond Singh. Guys, I don't think there's going to be, unless there's something that happens with Dubois, okay. But if it doesn't, I don't think so. Not all that much. No, I don't. If you want a show, it will be a Dubois show. Says Jean-François Petry. Says Raymond Singh, Pierre-Luc Dubois and Jonathan Drouin are from the same part of Quebec and played in the same minor hockey, Saint Agathe. Others. Montreal will never have a 100-point player. I wouldn't say that. They did before, they will again. I'll tell you right now that if the Canadiens win the lottery, they will. That I can tell you. Next up. If the team was fairly healthy this season, how many more points do you think they would have had? Let's say 12. Let's say 12. But at the end of the day, the goal is to win the cup, man. That's the goal. Goal is to win the cup. Everyone's still asking me about Michkov. Folks, you know where I stand? if the Canadians have the 5th pick, for example, if they have pick number 5 or 6 or 7, and he's available, I pick Michkov. At 5, 6, or 7, I do, especially at 7. You can have the debate, of course, at 5 or 6, but this guy's a phenomenal talent. Phenomenal talent. His hands are amazing. Where else are we going here? I don't know why, but I've like totally lost communication with Agnello and Sammy. So we probably have calls ringing off the hook, and I don't know. Does Suzuki have a 100-point season in him when he hits his prime? Yes. I don't know when, but Nick Suzuki will hit 100 points at some point. I believe that. I believe that he will. At some point, he's going to hit 100 points. Yep. He'll hit 100 points. All right. Others. Michael Pezzetta is a guy that I would re-sign because of how much of a team player he is. Barely played half the season. Didn't hear a word from the guy. Puts everything on the ice. You're right. Olivier, or probably Olivier Daniel, or Daniel Olivier. Or maybe Olivier Daniel. Yeah. Okay. So, yes, everyone loves Michael Pezzetta. Great guy. Leaves it all on the ice. At the end of the day, he's a 12-13. That's what he is. I mean, just take a look at the ice time they give him. Doesn't get that much. The ice time they give him leads you to believe. And if they would, they wouldn't have injuries right now, he might not be in the lineup. Might not. Others. My God, we have a lot of questions tonight. Will Montembeault be our number 1 next year? Well, he could be the number 1 on the Montreal Canadiens, yes, but that doesn't mean he's the number 1 in the National Hockey League. Next. What do we have here? We have Larry.
Yes, how are you?
Larry in Burlington, is that right?
That's right.
What's going on?
I talked to you before. However, Tony, I'm going to disagree with you on one thing, and that's on Michkov, or whatever his name is. And
Yeah.
just hear me out for a second.
Yeah.
I don't know how, whether you read the news or you know what's happening in the world out there.
Yeah, I know exactly what's happening in Russia, yes.
First pick for this guy. And this guy, what's happening in Russia right now is incredible. And what's going to happen in the next year, next 2 years, there's going to be no trade. There's going to be nothing between Russia, America, Canada. They're going to cut everything off. That, I think, is going to happen. So why would you go out, risk a first-round draft pick for a guy that will never happen? And that's my argument. I agree he's a great hockey player, but that's way too risky of a move. Too much risk in there for me to go for this guy.
That's fine, because in life, if you don't risk, I'm a risk taker. I take risks. Some stay in their comfort zone. I don't. That's just me. By the way, I might be wrong here, and I might strike out, and I might screw it up. And by the way, if I was the GM of the Montreal Canadiens, maybe I wouldn't. It's probably easy for me to say, I'm in Ville LaSalle in my basement, which I built a podcast studio in, and I'm on YouTube Live and Facebook Live and Twitter Live. It's easy for me to say, my job does not depend on it. From here, from where I am, I tell you, I'm a risk taker. If I see the Canadians pass on Michkov, I wouldn't be surprised. And when Grant tells me that he could slide out of the top 10 easily, I believe him. He's talking to scouts. And if he's saying that, it's because the scouts are telling him that. Now, I believe that going forward, Russian players will still be able to play in the National Hockey League. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know if anybody knows that for a fact. It's just my gut. And I'm a risk taker. So the bottom line is, right now I'm not right. I'm not wrong. You're not right. And you're not wrong. We'll have to see when we get there. And if one day Michkov doesn't come over, you can call me and say, Tony, I told you so. And if he does come over and the Canadians have him or someone else gets him and he steps in a couple of years from now and he plays like Kirill Kaprizov plays with the Wild, then I'll tell you, hey, bud, I told you so. That's the way it's going to go down.
I totally agree with that. I'm a large risk taker myself. But then at 70 years old, there's risks that I don't take. But that's okay. We're just talking risk.
I hear you.
Anyways, Tony, it's a good show. I watch you every night.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Larry. I appreciate it. What do you make of this report by Nick Kyprios that Jeff Gordon could be interesting in being a GM somewhere?
I think that Kyprios is just putting that stuff out there just to create havoc in the. He's not a Habs fan. He's got no use for Montreal, and that's the kind of guy he is. It's just BS.
I don't know about that. I mean, Nick Kyprios wrote this in the Toronto Star. The Canadians are not making the playoffs. You think he just wrote it to what? To get people talking? You don't think somebody whispered that in his ear, Larry?
I don't know. Let's take a look at, George Laraque. I don't necessarily agree with everything he said, but you know what? This is the Montreal Canadiens. This guy is in the best league, the best team in the league. I don't think he's going to leave. There's no reason to. Look at his success so far. He's got a complete team going on. Why would you leave something good?
So what does George say that you don't agree with, by the way? Because you said I don't agree with everything he says.
Well, the trade with Mike Matheson, where that trade didn't happen, and this telling another team that don't trade Edmondson because he's got a bad back. All this stuff should be kept inside. You shouldn't be blabbing that out in the media.
Why not?
That should be all kept. He's a Montreal Canadian, ex-Montreal Canadian.
No, Larry. He's a member. Larry, he's a member of the media. He hosts a show 2.5. Larry, hold on a second. In Montreal or out of Montreal, George Laraque hosts a show called Le Monde de Georges, Monday to Friday, from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. So he's a member of the media. He's a sports radio host, full-time sports radio host. He has contacts in the industry like many other sports radio hosts have contacts. He probably has more than some. He probably has less than some. The fact that he played in the National Hockey League, I'm sure, has given him some opportunities to talk to a few people. He gets certain information that people want to share with him. He knows what he can say and what he can't say. If he's saying something, it's because someone whispered in his ear and he was told that it was not off the record. When we're given information, we're told whether it's off the record or on the record. And when we're told that it's not off the record, or we're told, listen, don't use my name, but you can say it because this is it, then you run with it. So what do you want George Laraque to do, Larry? To host his own radio show 5 days a week, 2.5 hours a day, and not give his listeners any inside information? Nothing? Well, what kind of radio show he's going to host? Talk about his pillow for 2.5 hours?
But nothing came to fruition, did it?
But Larry, nothing. Things don't always come to fruition.
Well,
You remember when Nick Kypreos came out and said that, Shea Weber's injury he's hearing is career ending? He said that. Shea Weber returned to play 6 days later. Nick Kypreos got absolutely destroyed for it. People said that he made it up. A year and a half later, Shea Weber basically has retired. You want to know why? Because Kypreos was right with his report. And Weber went against doctor's orders, basically, and decided to play through excruciating pain as much as he could until he had to get operated, because then once he got operated, there was going to be a fusion and he couldn't play anymore. Everyone said that Kypreos was lying. He made it up. It didn't come to fruition, this and that. He was right. But it didn't happen the second he said it, because a player decided to play through excruciating pain. George was told that, hey, there's a good chance the Canadians are going to trade Michael Matheson. Now, I never thought that was going to happen. But do you think George just made it up? Somebody whispered in his ear. Maybe somebody gave him right info that didn't materialize. Maybe somebody gave him wrong info. And if somebody gave him wrong info, as a sports radio host, when somebody starts giving you wrong info, you weed them out and you're like, okay, that's no longer a source. That's the way it works. Edmondson with his bad back. You don't think Edmondson has a bad back?
of course, that's known.
So he told Edmonton, buyer beware. I wouldn't acquire Edmondson. That doesn't mean that Edmondson was not going to acquire him. If they were going to strike out on Matthias Ekholm, they were probably going to go for Edmondson. But George gave his opinion to Edmonton. I don't have a problem with him saying it, Larry. I respect your opinion, Larry, and I thank you for calling in, but I don't have a problem with him saying it. He's a member of the media now, Larry.
Well, it is what it is. And
hold on a second. Larry, you ever hear Chris Nyland give you inside info? It happens very, very often. Very often. You want to know why? He's a member of the media now.
Mm-hmm.
He had a sports radio show for about 10 years, and now he's a full-time podcaster.
Okay.
All right, Larry. Good talking to you.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. It's me that thanks you. All right. There you have it. If you want to follow that up, 1-888-585-7425. Larry has his opinion. I have mine. That's it. You can find Kypreos' comments in the Toronto Star, by the way. I was messaging him before, and I said, "Hey, Nick, I got word of your comments and stuff. Where did you make these comments?" And he just sent me he told me it was in the Toronto Star. So if you want to go check it out, it's in the Toronto Star. Yeah, there you have it. Others coming in yellow. We're going to get to one more, or what? What are we doing here? Let's see if we maybe one more comment to finish off the night. Will Caulfield get a larger contract than Suzuki? Okay. I don't know. Now, yesterday on the Sick Podcast, I told Marc-Andre Perreault that based on what I'm hearing, Cole Caulfield will sign a contract with the Canadians before the season is over. The final game of the regular season is Thursday, April 13th. The Canadians host the Boston Bruins. And this is what I'm hearing. They have been at it. When Jeff Gordon gave a smile to members of the media the other day, it's because they've been at it. Pat Brisson and Kent Hughes have been at it. They've had Zoom calls that have gone on for hours and hours and hours. And when you start having Zoom calls that are going on for hours, it's because, you're at work there. So now, what does it lead me to believe? It leads me to believe, and I don't know what I'm going to tell you next for a fact, but it leads me to believe that the fact that it's taken this long and they've been at it here for hours and hours and hours, it leads me to believe there's 3 scenarios on the table: 8 years, 7 years, and 3 years. Which one he's going to sign and how much he's going to sign for, I don't know. Is he going to sign for more than Suzuki? Listen, he's going to get at least $7 million a year, and he's going to get max $9 million a year. So he might, just get somewhere in the middle and get 8, or he might sign for the exact same number as Nick Suzuki. If he's going to get more than Suzuki, it's not going to be a lot more. And if he's going to get less, it's not going to be a lot less. Folks, spin it any way you want. It's going to end up being, if it's a long-term deal, it'll end up being upwards of $7 million and anywhere between 7 and 9. That's the way it's going to go down. I would think they're looking at 8, 7, or 3-year deal. And of course, the Montreal Canadiens would love nothing more than to announce an 8-year deal or a 7-year deal. This way they can say to the fan base, hey, you know what? Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, best of friends, our 2 top guns. One's a center, the other one's a winger. They both play on the same line. One feeds one, the other one scores. They both pick up points. They're the face of the franchise going forward, and they're going to be with you for the same amount of time. And then the Canadiens know that is their window to win a Stanley Cup. That's what I think the Montreal Canadiens want. What does Pat Brisson want? That I don't know. Pat Brisson might say, hey, Cole, you know what? I know you're tempted by 7 or 8 years, man, but I think we should sign 3. He might say that. Then Cole should say, Pat, yeah, but you know what? What if I get injured? What if I don't this? What I don't that? I'll put up numbers and Pat might be saying, yeah, well, you know what? Let's, we have to be optimistic and let's just say you're healthy and the next 3 years you score 40, 45, and then 50. Well, then, Cole, you're going to end up getting upwards of $10 million on your next contract. I'm Marinaro, and that clip you just watched is from our most recent episode of the Sick Podcast. Once again, follow us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free, and you'll be notified when we go live. I'm Marinaro. Tell your friends about it. This podcast, like me, is pretty sick.